Hello, Northeast Michigan. I'm Kevin Hodge with WBKB. Joining me today is U.S. Representative candidate Dr. Bob Lorinser. Dr. Bob, thanks for hopping in with us.
Thank you for asking me.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you. And why don't you just break down what are your ties to Northern Michigan? I know you're up in the UP.
Yeah, I'm a Yooper. We've lived in Marquette, Michigan since 1989, originally from a small community in Minnesota. So looking for a place after we started my medical practice. We were looking for a great place to live, near the water, small, environmentally friendly, good hospital, good medical care, and university. Marquette.
And you're running for Congress. So tell us why you decided to run and what you're hoping to change for our area, northern, lower Michigan, and the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah. So the first district in Michigan has 13 congressional seats now. We lost one, right? We lost one. So the first congressional district covers 36 counties in Michigan, about 45% of the landmass, the size of West Virginia, a little smaller than Ireland. I'm running because I believe our current representative is not fulfilling his duties and obligation of being a representative. Being living here since '89, I think I have a good understanding. I do have a good understanding what are the issues that are affecting Northern Michiganders and Yoopers, and hope to problem solve, unite, put things together, and move forward.
And you're obviously running against Republican current Congressman Jack Bergman, and it sounds like you differ on a lot of policies and such. Can we start with Line 5? He believes that the pipeline is safe and it should remain open, but during your discussion on Sunday at the Thunder Bay Winery, you mentioned that you would like to see it decommissioned.
Yeah, it all depends on the facts, though. If we could take a little bit of time on this. Line 5, first you have to end up saying, is it a federal issue or not? See, I do believe that, there's differences between individual responsibility, local, state, and federal. So we have to define, is Line 5 a federal issue? Should your congressperson be involved more than just you being involved as a local citizen? With that being the case, Line 5 probably is a national issue because people have made it one. Line 5 is a combination of four major issues. The one that brings probably the federal part in is the rule of law. We have a treaty with Canada, with commerce. Thou shalt not stop oil from going from Canada to a different country. That's a treaty. Treaties are federal. Does a congressman get involved in a treaty? Probably not, because it's a treaty. It's a treaty. The other part of the treaty is the treaty with the Native Americans. I think it's called the Treaty of Washington, based on the 1800s. And that treaty gives them the right and the protection of the environment, the waters, as a public issue. And another issue that you could say could be part of a federal issue is national security. And people have brought this up, national security, because Line 5 brings energy into the United States. I think my opponent brought that up as it's essential to keep open because of national security. I probably don't buy that argument because that energy through that line, the United States is not dependent on it. 97% of that energy comes from Canada, goes to Canada, comes from Canada, goes to the United States for export. So I don't think you could use that as a federal issue. Which the other two issues then would be economics by itself, and environment. So those are the four issues of Line 5. Should the federal government be involved? Maybe, maybe not, based on, if you call it energy, it's a national issue, and the treaties are a national issue, then we should be involved. Otherwise, I believe it's probably a local and a state issue. With that being, and now again, there's so many different things. People have so many different opinions of Line 5 because we don't have the facts. People will support it based on their set of facts. People will be against it based on their set of facts. I think we have to get down to the facts to make a reasonable judgments of what should be done. For example, people will end up saying, Line 5 is essential for energy in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan because that's where our propane comes from. So let me just, so if somebody's going to say that, they're going to say Line 5 is essential, you have to keep it open. Otherwise, you're going to freeze people like me in the central I live in the central UP, I heat on propane, my propane comes from Line 5. Mm-hmm. So if you end up saying it's essential and there's no other alternative for us to get propane, and that you're going to icicle us Upers, or my price of propane will triple or quadruple, I would be against. I would be against decommissioning Line 5. I don't, but then you have the other set of facts will end up saying decommission Line 5. 75% of the propane already in the Upper Peninsula comes from non-Line 5 sources. There are alternatives to get propane from Sault Ste. Marie, from down south from Wisconsin, and out west, from Superior, Wisconsin, by other avenues. So you have to go through each and every area of all these arguments. And I find it interesting when people disagree, they're disagreeing because they have a different set of facts. Mm-hmm. That's problematic, huh? Mm-hmm. You're trying to decide what's the right thing to do, and you're playing from different deck of cards. And we could go over each of these areas. So if you look at myself and my opponent, how we differ on Line 5, we're dealing off of different facts. He says it's energy, it's a national security issue because of the energy. Well, 97% of that energy doesn't stay in the United States, so it shouldn't be our national security issue. He believes that it's not an environmental threat. Well, it's a small threat, but it's a real threat. He believes that it's economics. You'll put thousands of people out of work. There's only like 100 people working on Line 5 the way it is. So I don't know how you could get to thousands if there's only 100. Mm-hmm. Then you have to, economically, if there was a catastrophe, it would put probably hundreds of thousands of people without the recreation, the resources, the environmental disaster in the Great Lakes and the fresh water, 20% of the world's fresh water, putting multiple people out of business because of the environment. Clean water to drink. A lot of people get our water from Lake Superior. So even though the risk would be low, the risk would be catastrophic. Mm-hmm. So I think if you look at all the issues, we have to put people in the same room, agree on the facts. Once you agree on the facts, then you could look for, should it be decommissioned? Should it stay open? Should you tunnel it? What are the options? Lastly, I'd like to end up saying, we're not against, no one has said we're against oil, we're against pipelines. The debate is the straits. Mm-hmm. The debate is an oil line underneath the straits. That is the debate. Enbridge says there's no alternative to bring that oil from Canada to the United States. People disagree with that. Enbridge is making $1 million probably a day on profit through that pipeline. So I tell people, go to the courts. I said that probably at the town hall that we end up having in Alpena. Go to the courts to look at the facts. When people said propane gas will go up by $1, not my facts. The facts that are coming out in court using Enbridge's own data says not true. Propane prices going up, not true because they're alternative sources. That they weren't there. They were not there back in 2014. They are there now. Facts are important to make decisions.
All right, and I kind of want to move to a more national topic, maybe the biggest influence on the elections so far in the midterms, the overturning of Roe v. Wade. What is your stance on abortion right now?
The short answer, then I'll explain it. The short answer, I am pro-choice, I am pro-life, and I'm anti-abortion. People think you can't be all three. I definitely can be all three. So here we go. Pro-life to me now is individual freedom, medical privacy, individual freedom. I don't think that the federal government should be in the same examination room as myself as a physician and the woman that there is to talk about reproductive rights. Medical privacy, The government should be nowhere near that. Nowhere near. Not the local government, not the state government, and not the federal government. So there's my pro-choice part. My pro-life. Pro-life means to me is much more than being anti-abortion. Pro-life means you believe in children, you believe in childcare, you believe in education, you believe in pre-primary education. You end up believing that that child has a right to health care, that they're not dependent on their parents or their foster or their adoption, a family for health care, that they could have that. Being pro-life means supporting adoption services, foster care services. Pro-life means so much more. We Americans have to take what it means to be pro-life, and it's much more than anti-abortion. So I'm as pro-life as anybody will end up seeing. You cannot just tell me that you are pro-life because you don't want to have a woman having their medical privacy. Doesn't match. It's inconsistent. Then I'm anti-abortion. What I mean by anti-abortion, I'll do everything humanly possible and beyond to decrease the need for abortions. When you look at abortions, 90% of abortions are related to the social inequities that we have in life. Poverty, lack of education, lack of health care, lack of birth control. If you could take care of the social inequities that is facing us in, say, Michigan, we could reduce abortion by 90%. You don't, to reduce abortion by making it illegal and criminalizing it. My opponent, my current representative wants to make it a felony for pro-choice, to put the doctor or the provider in jail for what I think on the heartbeat bill is 3 to 5 years in jail. Criminalizing it is not going to solve it. Don't bring us back to the 1970s, and before. It didn't work then. It's not going to work now. So yes, I am pro-life. I am pro-choice. And I'll do whatever I can to decrease the need for abortion, and overturning and criminalizing it is not the way forward.
Mm-hmm. And obviously this decision was made by the Supreme Court. Are you happy with how the Supreme Court looks right now?
No.
What would you like to see changed?
The Supreme Court is supposed to be apolitical. Don't you hear it almost everywhere? Oh, the Democrats are going to appoint a justice. The Republicans are going to appoint the justice. Republicans blocked, Obama from appointing a justice. They wouldn't even vote on it for a year. The Supreme Court is supposed to be apolitical. The Supreme Court in Michigan is supposed to be apolitical. It's not. Mm-hmm. You recognize that? I recognize that. That's sad. It's sad when we end up having both parties looking at the courts to get their agenda through. I always thought the Supreme Court was the blind justice, wasn't it? Wasn't the blind justice holding it and looking at our Constitution and looking at our laws to see if they're constitutional? Now it's the interpretation, and sad to say, either by liberal judges or by conservative justice. We need to stop that. And that's the same thing in the Upper Peninsula in northern Michigan. As a representative, I am not just going to be representing the Democrats. I'd be representing the Republicans, and probably the biggest of all political parties, those that don't belong to a political party. That's what I think the Supreme Court's supposed to be doing. No, I'm not satisfied with our courts and the politicalization of our courts. Not at all.
Is there anything we can do to change it?
Don't have it. I don't have the solution. I think, people look at it, how can you mandate that? I don't think you can. I would like to do my part as being your representative. Now follow me through on this one. The Supreme Court is partisan, right? We're talking the left or the right, liberal or conservative. How about if we brought us together? If we brought us, let's use us as an example in the 1st District. I am tired of Democrats making fun of Republicans. I am also very tired of Republicans making fun of Democrats. We live together, we play together, we worship together. Let's start acting like it. What are the problems in the 1st District? They're not Republican, healthcare issues. They're not Democratic, educational issues. Poverty, how is that Democratic or Republican? Let's get back of working together, moving us forward. Not to the left, not to the right, problem solve. If we can start doing that, then maybe when we pick our judges, our local judges, our district judges, our circuit judges, our state judges, maybe we could make it less political. And if we could do it, and Michigan then follows, the United States follows, hey, we got a shot. Us, citizens, we need to make it less political. I don't think you can't create a law. Please be nice to each other. Work to solve problems. I truly wish there wasn't a Republican or a Democrat or independent or a Green Party, energy party. I wish we would talk about issues, how to improve where we live. That's how I'm running my campaign. Then you may say, why am I running as a Democrat? The only chance to win is either to win by a Republican or a Democrat, because we are a two-party system. I'm more of an issue guy.
Unfortunately, there are Republicans and Democrats that go at each other all the time, though, Dr. Bob, and one of the other huge issues is guns. In northern Michigan, I believe there's a lot of people with guns up here. So, how would you want to implement some kind of gun control policies, or are you happy with the way things are?
No, I'm not happy, and I think we got the wrong problem. When people end up saying, what's your position on gun control? Why do I care about guns? We need to decide, what is the issue with guns? It's gun violence. If you end up having 10 weapons in yourself, and I go into your house and you have multiple weapons, and I really don't care. I don't think your neighbor should care. I don't think your town or anybody else should. What we should care about is the gun violence. It doesn't have to do with gun control. So let's get back to the issue. Define the problem, just like line 5. Line 5, define the problem. When we talk about guns, it's not gun control is the issue, it's gun violence. So as a congressperson, it says, we have 50,000 people about every year that kill themselves with guns. They either get killed or they kill themselves. 50,000. Do you want to define that as a problem? Is that a problem worth local, state, and federal, at least worth their time to explore? I look at it the same way. We have 107,000 people that die from drug overdose a year. Is that a federal issue, state? I think it's a problem. So I look at gun violence as the problem, not gun control. Then get to the facts, see what's the problem. We already defined it now, it's gun violence. What are the facts behind gun violence? And then once you get to the facts, is there something that you could do to reduce that death? Gun violence, to me, is almost a sin. It's almost a sin that the United States was outlawed from studying gun violence for 25 years. Congress did that. I think that was a major mistake. They were outlawed from studying gun violence until like 2019, because they said if you study gun violence, that means gun control. And if you want to do that, then CDC and the NIH would lose their federal funding. Again, another mistake. Why not study gun violence? 25,000 people, probably half of the gun violence is suicide. How do you address suicide? I think they're different. Gun violence is like cancer. There's many different types. Domestic violence from gang violence are two different types of gun violence, shootings and death. That's different than mass shootings. That's different than suicides. So study, identify each issue. When you get to, let's just use one for example. suicides, 25,000 maybe around there die each year. Can you do something that's acceptable? See how I do this? Acceptable to Americans to reduce the needless deaths of suicide. One could be, could be the waiting period. Most people end up thinking that suicide is from a severely depressed person that had a long time to think about this, and they will kill themselves regardless. Not true. Many suicides are temporary problems that have you reached your limit, you're over your limit, you see no way out, you go buy a gun, handgun, and shoot yourself. They're handguns now. I'm talking about suicide. It is a person that broke up, with their girlfriend or their boyfriend. It's a person that lost their job and is in financial despair and sees no way forward. They go to the store, they buy the gun, and they kill themselves. If you had a waiting period, see, watch this. Now I'm talking waiting period. If you had a waiting period of 5 to 7 days, some people believe, some of the data, the science believes that you may be able to decrease suicides 10 to 20%. Is that a price you're willing to pay? Is that a price that another gun owner that is not in despair, not having a problem, with committing suicide, are you willing to wait 5 days to get your next weapon to save maybe 3,000 to 5,000 people that would kill themselves? I would. I think it's reasonable. But if the Americans do not think it's reasonable, let's give them the facts, right? Identify the problem, give them the facts, look for a reasonable approach to decrease suicide deaths. Then if America is willing, then why not? Childhood deaths from guns. Another one, that's different. Childhood deaths. The major way a child ends up getting killed smaller is, from handguns or from the mass shootings, but also by, we say, non-safe storage of guns in their own household. Separating the ammo, separating from the guns, locking the guns up at home. Are you willing to lock up your guns at home to save your own child? These are discussions that should be had. This is stuff that should be discussed at the local, state, and federal level. Am I going to mandate something? No. I sure would like to have a discussion about it.
All right, Dr. Bob, I think we've covered most of the major issues for these midterm elections. So in closing, what separates you from your opponent, Republican Jack Bergman?
Well, I live here. I truly live in the district. I think that makes a big deal for me. I'm willing to unite and not divide. I will work with if I'm your representative, I will work with Republicans, Democrats, independents, and the disinterested, the young and the old. I'll represent you regardless of your sexual orientation, regardless of your gender. I would like to be a uniter. I think that's a big difference. The second thing I would like to end up saying, I'm a truth teller. I'll tell the truth even if it hurts. I think the people in the first district have to have a representative that will stand up, tell the truth, not party line, tell the truth, and problem solve. I would like to address issues to make where we live a better place. If we could take another issue, I think a big one would be inflation, economics, right? That's a huge issue. So look at the difference. Look at the differences here. My opponent was on TV, was interviewed at another TV station in the Upper Peninsula, my home TV in Marquette. We got asked about inflation. We both got asked about inflation. I stated, Inflation is not a republic. Don't blame a Republican or a Democrat for inflation, our current inflation we're having. Blame worldwide shutdown from COVID. Blame the Russians, for invading Ukraine. That's increasing our energy and our food. Let's blame greed and big oil on some of the oil prices. Let's blame avian flu on the chicken prices. But and today, what did we hear? The worst drought that probably Southern California has experienced. Your tomato prices are going to go up. You got to blame the right people. So I am willing to say our inflation is not a Republican-induced. It is not Democratic-induced. Our current inflation is related to multiple things. My representative states it's Biden's inflation. It's Biden's problem. And the solution is to de-elect all Democrats. I have never heard an economist agree with any of that. I'd like to see any facts supporting that whatsoever. He's doing it to get elected to stay in power. It has nothing to do with it. You have to truth tell. Sorry, de-electing Democrats is not going to solve our inflation problem. But we could be misled. De-elect Democrats, the inflation will go down within 2 years anyways. But it's not because you de-elected us. We have to, in America, identify the facts to have a possibility of moving forward. That's what I want to do. I want to tell you the truth about inflation. If somebody says, well, did the overstimulation from COVID contribute to inflation? Yes, it did. Yes, it did. About 10% of it. Biden is not as potent as you think. Biden did not cause worldwide inflation. It's a worldwide problem right now. Blame the right people, move forward. That's quite a difference. I'd like to represent the best of what Northern Michiganders and Yoopers are, not the worst. I will not lie. Do you want to bring somebody home? Hey, yep, he's a liar. He'll tell you whatever he can or she can to get elected. Not what I'm going to do. I'm going to be elected by telling the truth, problem solving, and moving us forwards. That's a major, major difference. And it's not because he's a Republican or a Democrat. Yeah. I'm running against Jack Bergman. Do you see almost anything that I bring up? Do I bring up Republicans? I bring up problems and problem solving. That's another major difference. I want to be a uniter, a problem solver, and do the best for our district. That's why I'm running.
All right, Dr. Bob, I think those are all my questions I have for you, all the time I have for you today. Thank you so much for coming in.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Dr. Bob, thank you so much. We'll see you in November for the election. And thank you all for watching. I'm Kevin Hodge. Have a great day.